This is the Ombudsman Files. A bed and breakfast is meant to be an emergency stopgap. For a household with a child, the law in England is clear: 6 weeks. That is the maximum. This mother and her daughter were left there for 28 weeks beyond that limit. In December 2024, a woman, the decision calls Ms. Y, approached Westminster City Council for help. She was homeless. The council provided Ms. Y and her daughter with emergency interim accommodation in a bed and breakfast and accepted the relief duty. By late February, the council had accepted the main housing duty, which means it accepted a legal duty to secure her somewhere suitable to live. In early March, a representative acting for her, who the decision calls Ms. X, complained. The accommodation had no kitchen facilities. The council replied. It said it was facing unprecedented demand for temporary accommodation. It accepted she had been in the bed and breakfast for 12 weeks. It apologised, and it offered £600, £100 for each of the 6 weeks she had been there beyond the legal limit. But she was still there. In June, the complaint went to stage 2. In its July response, the council said it had offered food vouchers in late June and apologised for not offering them sooner. It also offered a further £1,400 for the next 14 weeks. In August, asked when she would actually be moved, the council said it could not give a date. She was moved on the 18th of August to a 2-bedroom self-contained flat. By then, the complaint had already gone to the Ombudsman. This one is not really in dispute. The council accepted it was at fault for leaving her in bed and breakfast accommodation for longer than the law allows. The Ombudsman agreed, and the number the Ombudsman settled on is the one worth holding on to. Not 28 weeks in a bed and breakfast, 28 weeks beyond the 6-week maximum. That means around 34 weeks there in total. The Ombudsman found this caused her distress, and that she and her daughter had to live in unsuitable accommodation for longer than necessary. So what is the rule? Homelessness duties in England sit under Part 7 of the Housing Act 1996, and alongside it there is a specific order about what counts as suitable accommodation. For a household that includes a dependent child or a pregnant woman, bed and breakfast accommodation can only be used in 2 circumstances together. Only when no other accommodation is available. And then, for no longer than 6 weeks, both parts matter. It is a last resort, and it is time limited. And bed and breakfast has a specific legal meaning here. Broadly, it must be accommodation that is not separate and self-contained, and where cooking facilities are not provided, or toilet, washing or cooking facilities are shared with another household. The legal definition also excludes certain accommodation, including places owned or managed by a council, a registered provider, or a voluntary organisation, and accommodation provided in a private home. So do not rely on the name alone. Get advice if you are unsure whether your placement legally counts as bed and breakfast. So, what did the Ombudsman do? The Ombudsman's own remedies guidance says that where a family has stayed in unsuitable bed and breakfast accommodation beyond the 6-week limit, a payment of somewhere between £100 and £200 a week is likely. Not a fixed rate, a range. For this family, £100 a week was judged appropriate. 28 weeks at £100 a week comes to £2,800. That is the total remedy the Ombudsman calculated. Now here is the part that gets reported wrongly. The council had already paid £600 after the first stage of the complaint. So the further amount the Ombudsman recommended and the council agreed to pay was the balance, £2,200 by the 23rd of June 2026. And one more thing, in fairness to the council. The Ombudsman made no service improvement recommendations here, not because nothing needed fixing, but because the council was already taking steps. working with other organisations and joining a government pilot programme aimed at reducing its use of bed and breakfast accommodation. The Ombudsman said it was satisfied with that. So what can you take from this? First, know the rule and know the clock. If your household includes a child or you are pregnant and you are in shared, non-self-contained emergency accommodation, 6 weeks is the legal maximum. Write down the date you moved in. Second, being on a transfer list is not the same as the duty being met. In this case, the council said she was on the list for something more suitable, and she still spent months there. A list is not a move. Third, put it in writing and keep going. It was a written complaint, escalated through both stages and then referred onward, that produced the finding and the payment. Ask for a written response at each stage. And fourth, on money. Compensation here came from Ombudsman guidance, not from a fixed tariff. So do not assume a set figure, and do not assume an early offer is the end of it. In this case, the first offer covered 6 weeks. The final calculation covered 28. One case, one council, one finding, and a rule that is genuinely simple, even when the housing situation behind it is not. 6 weeks for a family in bed and breakfast when nothing else is available. If you are past that, you are past what the law allows. And that is worth raising in writing. If that is where you are, get advice from shelter or citizens' advice. Complain in writing, and remember, the Ombudsman is free and independent. This has been the Ombudsman Files from Housing Crisis Guide UK.